Welcome to the first quarterly members meeting of 2024. We're kind of in the process of looking at the mix of virtual and face-to-face meetings. It's a work in progress. We're looking at different ideas, but we chose to go virtual with this one. We'll be face-to-face for the next few. I think just looking back a little bit as I kick off here, 2023, I think will prove to be like a watershed year for MEF, where we started the repositioning of MEF to a much broader, industry influence with network as a service. We kicked that off only a few months ago at G&E, I think very successfully from everything I've heard. And I think what you're going to hear today is really kind of the plans to move that forward, move our positioning in the space, the underlying works. It's clearly a work in progress. This is a multi-year effort. And so we're just at the beginning. And so trustfully, you'll see that, a lot of the pieces are coming together, including and most importantly, all the underlying work that is happening in the committees and the different projects that are going on and so on and so forth. So with that, I'm just going to do my kind of regular housekeeping kickoff here and a few things about the meeting. We are going to be, for the next quarterly meeting, improving our agenda and registration environment. So bear with us as we get there. So for now, all your Zoom links are on the wiki pages. As always, Tom gets the presentations and recordings nailed up, pretty quick, end of the same day, typically. And we are monitoring the chat if there are any comments that folks want to put together. In terms of the meeting objectives, this one's a little different because it's virtual. Typically, networking is one of the key value points of people coming to meetings. But I think, as I alluded to, with our pivot to network as a service here, you'll get an update on that strategy from Nan and Pascal, and then some of the underlying plans, below that as well. For sure, progressing the committee work and the programs. That's obviously a big thing. Virtual, the big deliverable of this meeting is going to be continuing to progress that work and having no kind of delays and slowdowns. And really, I just want to say, as I mentioned, the rest of the events are face-to-face, so get them in your calendar. We'll be talking about Munich in a couple of minutes, so we'd love to see you out there. This audience is all the core contributors of MEF. There's some non-MEF members that get to come into the plenary, but if you're a member, please put a note, get travel approval if you have to. In terms of the agenda, just very quickly, Nan's going to come on after me for about 15 minutes. Pascal's got, it's a little early for him, so he's chosen to record his video. So we'll do a video for him for about 25. Daniel Barlev is owning, as he has, really quite a substantial number of, what we call strategic programs, ranging from certifications to accelerators and so on, SLA reporting. Some of them are quite new that you'll hear about and hear about more in the future. We'll hear from the chairs very quickly about what they're up to, what their week looks like. Stan, who's obviously tracking, the adoption of our work and forecasting that work, is going to come in and give his latest updates. And, we have some changes in marketing. Diana Richards has been with us about 4 months now. She's going to kick this off, a little bit of our marketing plans for the year at a very high level because they're really being kind of fleshed out now. And Melissa's going to come in and talk about, AR and PR, what we're doing. We had a really good year on that last year. And Lori's going to come in on the events side, probably with some emphasis on, our G&E plans for 24 after, as I said, a successful 23. And I'll just wrap it up for a couple of minutes, and we'll be done around 12:45. So I'm going to try to keep things to time and well-timed here. There were editing sessions yesterday. I didn't get any particular readout on those, but the chairs can do that. Same thing was held this morning for some of the committees. I think all of them had something going on. We have our plenary today. And then it's a fairly simple meeting with the committees. All the committees are in play tomorrow. And as you notice, we kind of truncate this thing at around 3 o'clock. It's never ideal, a virtual meeting for everybody. And we understand that 3 o'clock is not so friendly for Asia, but it does, get North America and Europe in reasonable play. And then again, tomorrow we're ending up a bit earlier, and 3 of the 4 committees, the committees are ending up earlier. Then we have a relatively quick closing plenary. So, standard format, nothing new to report. Happy to report that we've got the Yeah, a little bit late, but there's a lot of events and meetings going on right now, face to face. The hotels are fully booked up, so it took us a little while, but we're thrilled to be back in Munich. I think it's been 10 years, and we've got the Rivada Space Network is going to be one of our hosts. And they've been working with us for a number of months to help put this together. And Lori's over there right now meeting them, meeting the facilities and so on and so forth. So 8th to 11th of April, that's a Monday to Thursday, similar format to what we're used to. We'll be doing a plenary, there'll be editing sessions like they are. The plenary will kick off after a lunch on the Tuesday. There will be social activities. We'll start marketing that meeting next week. Better let back into next week. So stay tuned for more info. And I touch on that on the next slide. We are sourcing something on the East Coast, trustfully of North America. We're looking at 2 different dates. These are dates that have been provided to us by the chairs as good dates. It's never perfect. There are overlaps. We'll do our best. We're thrilled to be back, as you'll hear later, in Dallas for G&E again. You've got the dates there. And as was the case last year, we are going to have a condensed meeting on the back of G&E. So that's what the landscape looks like for now. Again, at this point, hopefully in the next couple of days, you'll see a registration site go live. The meeting page will go live. The registration itself is actually open now, and maybe Tom's brought this up over in the last day or so. But in any case, if you in the next, like I said, early next week, there'll be correspondence, and you can book your hotels and so on. So please, we had a really good. For those of you that attended Paris 2 years ago and Rome last year, we had really, really quality meetings with great representation, both from, global participants, but also in particular the EMEA-based operators. So we're thrilled to be back in Munich, as I said, and we're really shaping the topics and the format and the activities within the meeting to really deliver high value and to, make it worth your while. That's what it's all about, right? Giving you that compelling reason to attend. Since we had a last face-to-face or our last full meeting, I just want to share some of the new members. We have 3nets. And again, you're going to see diversity of membership here. It's changing, and that's changing to align with where we're going. That's what we need. So 3nets delivers new hybrid multi-cloud architecture for enterprise digital transformation, and they're really, a new member to our MEF ecosystem. China Mobile, everybody knows who China Mobile is. The international arm has joined us. Their initial focus was certification. Idea Helix, really a new breed of member coming. They're a Salesforce partner, an integrator, and they joined MEF to integrate LSO into business automation solutions, primarily targeted to small to mid-size operator community. As we see automation going ultimately to smaller players over years, we need solutions for those. So we're thrilled to have them, and the service consultant and integrator community will be an important part of that ecosystem going forward. Big names like Palo has joined us, obviously needs no introduction. And they are one of the companies that are in our beta program for SASE certification. Rivada Space Networks, I just mentioned, as one of our hosts for Munich, we're thrilled to have them. There's Rivada Networks and there's Rivada Space Networks. The latter was a spinoff. It's only been, a year and a half, 2 years old. Do they deliver a LEO solution? They call that the Outernet. Pretty exciting. And they're joining us to participate in all of our activities, but in particular to be able to offer really high bandwidth certified, connectivity through their space network across the globe. Again, no, I don't think there's much of people know who Zscaler is and what they do. And like Palo, they're here to participate in certification and in our security work. We continue to see good traction with 3.0 certifications. As I usually mention, some of these companies are new. Some of them are companies that are getting incremental certifications above and beyond, renewing them whatsoever. So we're getting close to that 100 mark. We still have room for, I think, 7 logos on that slide, and whoever produces the slide has conveniently left that space there exactly for, maybe condensed 7 logos. Hopefully, maybe by the time we get to the annual meeting, we'll have that up for 100. Reason to celebrate. With that, I'm going to introduce Nan, and there will be a member communications. It didn't get out this week. It'll be out next week, basically outlining some changes to the executive team. I will say that Nan's going to cover that. He's got a team photo here with all the players. But I will say that Nan, uh, when he departed Ericsson, he ceased to be a member and he no longer became president. And the board has appointed him the chief executive officer of MEF, and he's now working with us full time. And Nan, with that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, but I will hit the slides for you.
Great, thank you. Hey, great to see everybody, especially the familiar faces, and hopefully we'll see each other in Munich. Totally looking forward to it. So as all you know, we've been in the transformation journey for a number of years, and just like any other companies, and 2024 is clearly is an important year for us. Kicking off NAS as our key theme, as a vision for the future of MEF. So if you hit the next slide. So if you think about it, we're really defining the NAS of the future. So what is it? Really is a standard-based on-demand connectivity, application assurance, cybersecurity, and over multi-cloud and automated networks. If you think about all the 6 aspects and list on the bottom there, we've been kind of doing the piece part throughout the course of our journey over the last few years or maybe even a decade, and really helping to shape to where we are today. Fundamentally, it's really moved things forward from NAS perspective. So NAS has been around for a long time. And go to the next slides, Kevin. But it really has been, inconsistent and forecast wise. They say, well, it's going to be a big market, but it's so far out, you really can't see. But been around for over 10 years, and the growth has not really been there, and then also the forecast is inconsistent because there's no clear definition of NAS. And if you go to the next slide, so I think we're in the great position as an organization to define it. So next slide. Carrier Ethernet has really been an excellent example to drive the growth, in terms of for our industry. And if you see that blue bar versus the orange or the purple bars, and you can see the first 10 years of growth for Carrier Ethernet, is basically overwhelming the others. And even though you've heard a lot of things about SD-WAN, you heard a lot of things about NAS already, but the actual growth has not been there, compared with the Carrier Ethernet. I think that's one of the reasons that we believe, we're in the good position to do that. So if you go to the next slides, Kevin. So if you can look at the journey, we've been kind of preparing for this NAS leadership for quite some time. You could argue, well, okay, we kind of stumble onto it, but in reality, though, I think it's a natural evolution. So if you think about it as from the founding of the MEF, we really did for the 15 years on the Carrier Ethernet services and certification, we created that $80 billion market, which we showed you earlier. And then for the last, 7 years or so, 6, 8 years, we have really been adding on top of the services, in addition to the services we continue to create, the Carrier Ethernet services, overlay services like SD-WAN security services, cloud connectivity services, all that. But we're adding a different dimension, which is automation of APIs, LSO APIs. And I think LSOC is doing it, and the service committee continue to define services. And then we start adding certification on top of that as well. And now we actually just came from the PTC, and Stan would talk about it. 150 different operators around the world actually in the different adoption cycle for the APIs. So what that really combination of both is allow us to deliver that on-demand services, connectivity services, but also the cybersecurity services, also on demand. So we're really preparing us to do. So we define the services and we're adding the automation capability through APIs. And next one, which is we actually added, next slide, hit another, yeah. So we added ecosystems and a wraparound with certification. And then we believe that the NAS building blocks is all there. The ecosystem is something more fundamental for us to be able to work as the network service across different carriers. So the ecosystem, including, obviously all the carriers, all the technology vendors, as well as all the MSPs, and to really allow us to be kind of work together. So if you think about the automation, it's not necessarily just automation within the carrier, which is everybody's doing, but it's really between the carriers. So the ecosystems of building new partners, building the overall buying and selling community, and make it an automated way is it really critical to actually deliver NAS. And obviously, in conjunction with that, we have a certification to certify both services, automation, as well as potentially the ecosystems. So at GNE last year, October, we launched the GNE, the NAS concept. Obviously, NAS is the name of the conference itself. We believe we're the first conference is actually in the industry specifically dedicated to NAS. And we launched the first blueprint. The blueprint, really is the layout for the industry, not just for us, but the layout for the industry, the market opportunity, the components of NAS, as well as capabilities, and then for some use cases, as well as fundamental building block, which I mentioned that earlier. And we really help to outline what each of the organizations within the industry are doing, and which we are collaborating. I think you'll hear from Pascal talk a little bit about that. And the services automation, becoming, really fundamental building blocks to deliver, thanks for all the committee work to deliver the NAS of the future. And, to do this, we believe we have an incredible leadership with the core team of board of directors, executive team, as well as the committee chairs, augmented by technology advisor board, enterprise leadership council, and a CEO advisory board, and also have initiative like regional executive council, as well as the women and MEF. So if you go to next slide, we're really showing the team. We're working really hard to really make the industry move forward. I think everybody here. The person I want to introduce you to today is Sunil Kandakar. And then for those of you doesn't know Sunil, he was a CEO of Nuage, and now he take on a new challenge to be a Chief Enterprise Development Officer for MEF. If you think about it, and our ecosystems has been the service providers and technology vendors. Now, as Kevin said, we kind of really expand that aperture a little bit. Really make it more end to end. So the enterprise is clearly missing from this overall ecosystem. So really wanted to have a dedicated resources to really helping us to move things forward, to developing a strategy. How do we actually get enterprise involved, which we started, Enterprise Leadership Council, but bus doesn't stop there. We actually wanted to do more to get them involved, becoming a regular attendees of MEF meetings, and then involved in the development of NAS. So next slide. World-class, totally world-class, board of directors, and you can, name all the directors and who actually responsible for, incredible amount of business within each organization, but work together. Just incredible brain power we have. Next slide. Great, committed, intelligent, and leadership, and without these leaders, we couldn't really get things done. That's a fundamentally important for us to actually develop the NAS technology and NAS vision, as we talked about it. Next slide. And then if you look at, this is a luminary, really the luminaries in the industry of technology. It's an incredible team to really work with us. One shining example is a SASE certification, which many of the board members, one of the advisory board members are participating. Next slide. And we have an incredible progressive CEOs who really helping us and working with us to really kind of lay out how we actually going to get the NAS vision, which we all think is going to be, and where we wanted to go. These individuals obviously has tremendous day jobs, but they spare their time in working with us to lay out the business vision and how the vision can converge. And some of the things you'll see down the road, we'll work with many of them to actually driving MEF forward from business and also NAS perspective. Next slide. And this is the first a result of Sunil's work, and obviously in conjunction with the help with the leadership. And we have quite a bit of coverage in terms of the different industries, representing the enterprise and their views as how MEF could really help to move forward, and whether it's news, whether it's retail, whether it's healthcare, a bank or pharmaceutical. It's a array of this, but we're not going to stop here. We continue going to grow this, and then eventually turn that into potential the enterprise leading the net enterprise participation of the MEF activities. Next slide. And we also, this is our first attempt of executive council for regional executive get together, really have regional issues. And one thing we realized a lot of times, each of the regions would have a different peculiar requirement that's only addressed regionally. And this is our first attempt to actually do that in LATAM. We're looking at how we actually shape this model, potentially implementing it elsewhere in a place where we may not necessarily get to, quite often, or people participation is a lot easier with the regional commonality and common interest. Next slide. Clearly, we have an incredible woman in this organization, and we, really helping us to move things forward and increase the diversity and as well as stepping up when leadership is open. So we're really pleased to have this woman, these incredible women, to stepping up, really helping us to move organization forward, being diverse and then also smarter organizations as well. Next slide. This is an editor recognition we always do. I think one thing I wanted to say though here is, fundamentally, even though we're transitioning, into a different kind of a platform, rather than just the standards, but standard has always been, and then it will continue well to be the fundamental building blocks for anything we do. Obviously, NAS is one of the key things we do. Thank Larry, Manfred, Kartik, and Mahal. So is it really important for us to continue to drive forward? So go to the next slide. This is my last slide. I wanted to say, MEF is transitioning into business collaboration platform. Obviously allow the members to differentiate. If you think about it, what we really doing is really align the industry to a common goal and with a common language, enable that ecosystem for integration and interoperability, and as well as drive the revenue growth and accelerate the time to revenue. If you think the bottom right, when we're talking about the platforms, that's an ecosystem which we talk about, and the teams have spent a lot of time with the ecosystem building and work with the partners and members to do that, and buying, selling, but also collaborating, and sometimes few layers down in terms of buying and selling. But also we wanted to enlarge the circle of the ecosystem by potentially offering different ways to participate in MEF. Doesn't have to be just the principal members. It could be other members, and to be able to participate. We as a team are working through that and really help to basically widen the circle of the ecosystem of MEF. Standards, I don't need to talk about it. I think a lot of times we kind of overshadow the other things, but like I said, it's a fundamental building block. And API, smart contract, and blockchain. Those are key tools or features we can offer to our members. Certification, and then an education event. But building on top of it, different stakeholders and have a different a way to differentiate building on the overall capability, just like they did at Carrier Ethernet. So what we really fundamentally doing is that really building transition into a business collaboration platform with a differentiation for the network as a service. If you think about it, it was a cool, way back when the connectivity is a thing, and then it becoming cloud. Now, what we're really doing is, we're doing the NAS, which is you can think of it as a super cloud, which is actually connecting not only different endpoints together, but also the cloud together. So we're building, really truly building the future for the industry, networks as a service, and as a broad umbrella. So really excited to work with the team and every one of you to move things forward and make MEF, the future, to define the net. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Nan. Just a comment. Obviously, some of this information is being distributed for the first time. CEO councils and LATAM councils and enterprise. So there's a lot of new ideas that we're bringing to the table here to help us shape and grow this ecosystem. But it's a work in progress. Exactly how the councils engage with us and the frequency at which they meet and the member exposure and all of those things are a work in progress. And we'll get a lot of good feedback from the members in terms of what works, what they'd like to see, and so on. But I think that it's just a great representation of the importance of MEF to their organizations. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending their time doing it. With that said, we're going to hear from Pascal.
Hello, and welcome to today's MEF CTO report for our January virtual meeting 2024. I'm going to move through this presentation pretty fast because I have 20 minutes, and I really want to keep on time. But you're free to download this presentation and really go through it in more detail. Let's just get started. Digital transformation is driving the force behind MEF. And it's really driving a lot of work throughout the industry. And the work of MEF is certainly aligned to this digital transformational journey. And the change for networks is apparent. We're seeing more and more clouds and direct access to clouds are very critical, not just through the internet, but directly through a middle mile player or through a backbone with direct access to all kinds of clouds, whether it be edge clouds, regional clouds. Access from anywhere has become crucial from the COVID days. We're seeing automation is a must-have. Networks and cybersecurity are really coming together. And basically, the idea of an application performance with SD-WAN now emerging is becoming the norm. Applications are expected to just behave correctly on a network. And then finally, we're seeing this new model of application developers interacting with networks. And I'll cover that in more detail. And finally, at the end of the day, all of this is about trying to deliver this as a service with the right business models of as-a-service utilities with quick provisioning, visibility, and actionable insights. So the market for NAS is quite significant. It's probably greater than Carrier Ethernet has been over the 20 years. And as you can see, there's some forecasts. It's all over the place. But they're expecting, from a forecasting point of view, that NAS, because it's a utility as-a-service, cloud-like utility, is really going to grow rapidly. Now, NAS, the old NAS, it's been around for a decade, was more about just transports and being on demand in some ways, being elastic. The new NAS I'm going to cover, that what MEF is focused on, is much, much more than this. And I think more and more the analysts and the industry is agreeing that the new NAS is going to be very large because it's focused around clouds and cybersecurity and networks coming together and so on. We'll cover this in much more detail. So at MEF, we really believe that NAS is really there to unite the global ecosystem, provide a utility-like service to the enterprise where the enterprise don't have to own infrastructure anymore, and basically runs it as OpEx and consumes it as a utility model, whether it be pay as you go or a subscription model monthly. But really, that's the end goal. And more, they're used to doing that by buying clouds today that way, where it be IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, and they really want to buy networks that way. Now, at MEF, we're doing a number really of critical things here. Our on-demand connectivity is all our work we've been doing for 20 plus years, including obviously Carrier Ethernet, but our IP services work for 6+ years, which I'll cover more in another section. The layer 1 connectivity service we've done, going up the stack to application assurance. This is all our SD-WAN work, our slicing work that we're still working on, cybersecurity, all our SASE work that we've been working on, our Zero Trust framework, and now multi-cloud, all our MEC, multi-access edge compute, and connectivity to multi-cloud is all part of this NAS services that we think is what the market wants. So these 4 theme areas, on-demand connectivity, application assurance, cybersecurity, multi-cloud, is critical. And this is all wrapped around certification and, more importantly, the automation that enables this to be frictionless and to have a cloud-like experience, basing the enterprise a full automation suite for everything from interacting, buying the services, provisioning service, and even interacting with the network from a developer application point of view, to finally the NAS service provider has to connect into a global ecosystem and have that ecosystem look like it's part of its offering, including the full elastic capabilities that the NAS provider can provide within its own footprint and out of its footprint, and with all kinds of partners, all the way from not only transports, but from technology partners, data centers, and so on, and obviously cloud providers, hyperscalers, and so on. So this whole ecosystem has to come together and unite itself in one big cloud-like experience, and we'll talk about this as really a super cloud. We've been working on this vision really subconsciously for decades now, and what we've really done is put all of the work that we've been doing since I've been the CTO here for 6+ years, and the plus almost 15+ years of MEF, really taking all of that work and packaging it under the NAS umbrella. And as you can see, there's a ton of standards we've already done, tons of active projects going on in all of these areas that I've just covered, including all our certification, the ecosystem, and so on. And really, MEF is becoming a platform for this collaboration. I'll cover this at the end. So let's talk about service bundles, because we believe that the service provider, the NAS provider, wants to provide bundles and just differentiate itself from other competitors by bundling. We know this works, but it also might want to offer best of breeds, and that's okay. And we think that as in the footprint, the blueprint of NAS, that basically there has to be 4 major themes that the NAS provider can pick from to bundle or to offer separately. And that is obviously on-demand connectivity. This is all the work we've been doing in Carrier Ethernet, the IP services, and the layer 1 connectivity services, including wavelengths and fiber, which belongs under this. Also, all our work we've been doing at SD-WAN and slicing is really under the application assurance theme. Obviously, our cybersecurity, our SASE work, and our IP, our security functions for IP services, which is really an SSE in essence, and our Zero Trust framework. And then finally, we're working a ton of work on a MEC, and also we need to work on multi-cloud connectivity. So all of these theme bundles are really, really important of how we see the new NAS. The new NAS is all of this on-demand, application assured, cybersecurity, and multi-cloud all coming together as a NAS offering in various bundle packages and so on. Also, I think NAS is moving not only from the NAS provider to a demarcation point we call the uni that stops the subscriber's network at their site, offices, and so on, but more and more now NAS is considered within the subscriber's network, that the NAS provider is also managing the private 5G, the Wi-Fi, the LAN environments in the offices and so on, and even the campuses. And the demarcation point is moving to users, applications, and devices. Now we see this in our Zero Trust framework. We're calling it and using it that way. But we have to think about this in our automation APIs. And as you see in our section that I'll cover on around interacting with developers to the network, this becomes very critical. So I'll go more into that when we get into that section. I also believe NAS will be delivered from the edge. And more, the access loop will be an IP fixed or wireless access loop to the nearest POP and or the edge. And then with that, all kinds of NAS services will be picked up, including the overlay of SD-WAN, all the cybersecurity, connectivity to the multi-clouds, connectivity to edge clouds right there at that POP that has partnered with the service providers and the NAS providers with the hyperscalers. And finally, connecting the regional clouds of all sorts, whether it be IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS clouds, will go through some kind of middle mile network and not the internet. And that middle mile network is highly reliable and very high speed. And really, that's the essence of what we believe how NAS will be delivered and how connection really is from these digital transformational use cases below on this diagram to all of the various clouds and all the network services that have to offer this capability for the digital transformational journey. So with that, now let me move to automation and cover this really fast. I believe that, as I talked about before, that as all the NAS providers become cloudified and all the providers around the world cloudify themselves, we've already connected ourselves to the data plane at very high speeds, and thanks to Carrier Ethernet, that is very apparent at 10, 100 gigabits and going even higher speeds. But now we have to connect in an automated level. All of the providers around the world that's cloudifying has to become one big super cloud, including the hyperscalers, the service providers, and so on. And this super cloud means automation is critical. So as you know, the industry needs to be highly automated. And to do that, we need to have greatly interoperability. Today, while we've had lots of manual processes, we've also have a lot of custom proprietary APIs, which has created a spaghetti mess for support and for all the IT teams to be able to manage and update and support all these various custom APIs. At MEF, we've taken a different approach of an invest once and deploy anywhere approach. And this creates a high fidelity, high interoperability, and high extensibility model across the global ecosystem. And this means it's right in line with how we see cloud native services with microservices, that you can build your application anywhere, deploy it on a Kubernetes and a container kind of cluster, and run that anywhere. And it's the same idea. APIs should be the same way. It should be reusable for all kinds of use cases. And our framework has certainly really stood the test of time. But more importantly, we realize we can't do everything. So we are now looking very heavily to work with TM Forum. While we've built our APIs on TM Forum APIs version 4, we're looking to see the east-west direction. We've got great adoption that Stan will cover, facing the ecosystem partners, and now hopefully getting to the customers. But as we go north-south, it's really critical that we leverage the TM Forum and other collaboration industry bodies to work with them in an SDO syndication model where we all come together, synergize, and make the industry move forward faster. So what we're saying here is, how can we take the MEF payloads, which I'll cover here in a second, the MEF APIs of the business side, and how do we work with the TM Forum APIs on the operational aspects, but use the MEF service payloads instead? And this is the work I'm undertaking right now with TM Forum and flying over there next week to Lisbon to meeting with the CTO of TM Forum and their CPO. So in a nutshell, we think that MEF is well suited for east-west, and TM Forum is really well suited for north-south. And there's a great project they're doing within TM Forum that's called TM 909, which is a NAS suite that abstracts out, again, this whole idea of the network layer all to just being a service layer at that business system. And we are looking to work with TM Forum to prove this out with Carrier Ethernet first, and now also IP services for DI and broadband as the first use cases. And I'll cover this in the section coming up on IP services. So our business goals is really simple. MEF East-West APIs MEF payloads, product payloads, service payloads, TM forum, operational APIs, north-south. And really, there's a bunch of technical goals that we're looking at. I won't get into it to save time, but you can please download the presentation and look at it. We'll know more as I come back from Lisbon in next week. Again, these are examples of how we've taken the 60+ TM forum APIs, narrowed down to 20+ APIs, modified them heavily to have great context, great fidelity, great interoperability, and now we're looking to have great extensibility. These are built both for our business APIs and our operational APIs. You've all seen this diagram many, many times. I'm very, very happy and very grateful to all our members, all our contractors, and to our board and our tab to get us to this journey where this is production quality, shipping in SDKs, when so many releases of SDKs, I believe we're now in our Grace release that just got delivered in December. And I believe our next release will be Haley. So stay tuned for that one, which should be in June. We've also taken on a whole new set of work around product schemas and service schemas. And we've also done the work for Carrier Ethernet. We've done the work for IP services, which I'll show you in a second. And we're now taking on the work for our edge computing and so on. But really, while we've done a service scheme for SD-WAN, we're really missing the product schemas facing the enterprise for SD-WAN, SSE, ZTNA, SASE, multi-cloud, MEC, and so on. So I think our work we have to be thinking about is now not just tying the ecosystem together, but how do we have customer-facing APIs? And I'll get more into this in more detail here shortly as I talk about the network and the developers interacting with each other. So this is going to become very critical that we start focusing now towards the enterprise because the experience starts there. And some of these services like SD-WAN, SASE, and so on is really just an enterprise experience that then connects into the ecosystems for other underlays and so on. So we've also realized that APIs are great. And as you can see, we have our APIs for all kinds of business and operational aspects. But at the end of the day, the ecosystem has to be elastic. And in that elastic capability, the ability to bill and settle is one of the biggest use cases and the biggest pain point to solve. And there's certainly other use cases to solve, like SLA crediting, product inventory, price discovery, and so on. But at the end of the day, it's building smart contracts on a blockchain. We won't get into the details of how to do that, but certainly we have a ton of accelerator projects in this area. And please contact Daniel Barlev. But this is very, very critical, as more importantly, the ecosystem has to have the ability to have immutable records of transactions between these APIs and these transactions, and to have non-reputable capabilities on these transactions. And this is the essence of building a blockchain environment on smart contracts utilizing the MEF APIs. So this work is well underway in a lot of accelerator projects. For more information, you can download our automation report, and this covers extensively everything we're doing in automation. So I'd like to cover now our IP service schemas for MEF LSO APIs. And I think this is very important because I talked about IP services becoming more and more predominant, especially as it becomes the access loop into the edge. And it's really important that MEF captures this. Number one, we just released in December our full IP services portfolio. We've been working for 6+ years. It's been an incredible journey. Now it's fully completed, except for, I believe, just the product payload. No, actually, yeah, the product payload that we're working in the commercial business committee to actually make that more optimized. And I believe this is really important that we really deliver on this capabilities of capturing our APIs of Sonata or our business APIs to include not just Carrier Ethernet, but IP services, including anything that goes north-south too, and working with TM Forum. So you can see here that we've established a buy-sell ecosystem. Stan will cover this in the adoption side, but IP services have to also be exchanged across the ecosystem too, because there's a big need for buying and selling IP services, broadband and DIA. And we have done the product payloads for both basic and advanced for internet access. And this is basically both DIA and broadband. And I won't get into the details, but you can ask any one of our also committee co-chairs and they can help you with this, or reach out to me directly. And the biggest use case we're seeing are two. One I'll cover right here is SD-WAN is driving the need for IP services, not only for the access loop, but also the idea that more and more that as SD-WAN becomes highly mature and deliver the application assurance, service providers, the NAS provider has to rely on IP local loops all over the world to become and look like it's within its footprint of that retail service provider. And this is very critical. To do that, the retail provider has to be able to buy internet access loops, broadband and DIA from around the world and operate them. And this is really critical. So this is driving it. And the other reason it's driving it is over-the-top operators are also buying IP loops to run their over-the-top services. So again, they also want to be able to use automation to buy these loops. This is predominantly what's happening and driving the market for IP services that are becoming greater than even carrier Ethernet we're seeing when it comes to automation. And another area that's really critical is fixed wireless access for 5G. The idea that I can ship, that a wireless provider can ship a modem and turn up a local loop within days is powerful. So while maybe a lateral has to be built up for fiber or even for backup, the idea that buying and selling even 5G fixed wireless access as an on-demand IP broadband loop is very powerful. And I think it's going to be more and more important. And for that, we really need to be able to define and make sure that our IP work and all our schemas, product and service schemas have this in mind. Now, our developer side, as I wrap up this presentation, is becoming very critical. More and more, we're seeing that developers want to interact with the network. And we've got this ability to do this because developers really want an intent model. They don't want the complexity of what we've been doing in Cantata with all that operate and buy and quote and ordering. But that's a day zero thing, a day zero where the buyer wants to be able to get a price quote and order the services for all kinds of how the developer has to interact with the network is really critical. But when it comes to day N, where the developer actually writes in his code to the application, those APIs have to be very, very simple intent. And we're seeing, and you'll see in the next slide, the Chimera project around 5G is doing that. And really, we think the Chimera project, which is for developers to be able to interact with 5G networks, has to go beyond 5G, and it has to be able to go into both wired and wireless. And this, I think, is very important for MEF as we go forward. Now, we think that on the day zero side, we have all the work for Chimera, and we can do all of the quote ordering, provisioning, working with TM Forum and their transformational layers, and then allow the Chimera APIs to then work through the GSMA gateway and work with TM Forum operate APIs to basically then convert from that intent-based developer APIs to the more complex provisioning and operational APIs that have to be done beyond the gateway into the network. So this is a lot of complexity, so I won't spend a lot of energy, but we're working very hard to be able to get in this ecosystem and working with that. So at the end of the day, we also think there are APIs for security, like an Amber Alert facing the enterprise. We've seen this from our Enterprise Leadership Council. They want this. And I won't get the details of this, but think of an Amber Alert as a security initiated to the service provider, to the enterprise, giving you a risk notification. And then there's also the idea of failure notifications, service impairments, and maintenance notifications coming from the provider to the enterprise. This all came from an Enterprise Leadership Council saying this is very important. So you can see these APIs have to be simple APIs. They cannot be the complex APIs we've been doing for the business side. So our idea for developer API goals is basically we need to start thinking through how do we deliver these developer API goals? What are these enterprise-facing APIs? And how do we also do that for this security, scrubbing, failure maintenance APIs? How do we get involved with the Chimera APIs and move them not only to wireless, but wired use cases? And there's other use cases for developer APIs we're seeing from our tab members saying for SD-WAN or SASE, for example, an SD-WAN edge device might want to get a slice of a 5G, and it wants to be able to do that from a programmable level. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our SASE certification update, and this will be the end of my presentation. So our MEF SASE certification really comprises of 3 certifications: independent SD-WAN certification, our SSE certification, and our Zero Trust certification. It's really then when a vendor or service provider gets all 3, it basically will then get a SASE certification, which then further tests integration. I'll cover that briefly. Our certification goes beyond just testing to MEF standards. It's testing for WAN impairments, for SD-WAN, for scale, performance, classification of applications correctly, threats, both exploits, evasions, and malware, making sure SSL runs right, zero trust access networks, to make sure the ZTNA, the authentication authorization models are correct, and so on. And it's a continuous model. It's a subscription per year that a vendor provider can continuously assess. And the goal is really not just a black and white certification, but really move to a score, just like a Moody Bond score, that basically drives everybody in the ecosystem get certified to go higher and higher and drive to the top to get the best score, both for vendors and service providers. We've added in a whole transparency process and tools besides our requirement specifications. And this is really important. We felt from the vendors wanted to have transparency of what and how it would be tested versus the requirements to the test. So this is very important. And then we've also adding in the 4th certification. To get the SASE certification, we're taking the Gartner definitions of integration, and we're taking the basic version of Gartner and adding that in to the certification of SASE. And that will be added in past the beta. And then finally, we've announced our beta program in October of 23 in our GNE event. And these are the vendors that and the providers that, and you can click on the link or see it, about the certification, the beta, about the SASE certification, which really covers this in a very detailed way if you look at the press release. For more information about all of our SASE certification, our cybersecurity suite, I have a separate presentation video that you can download and get from our site, and it gives you much more detail about our whole SASE certification and all our cybersecurity product suites. So with that, let me conclude. Our next steps are certification. We'll have our requirements to our service providers so that they will basically give us how they want to get tested for certifications. Today, the beta program, the service providers inherits the vendor certifications. And then in GA, the service providers will have their own certifications and be tested for things like automation process and so on. We're still collecting those requirements. And basically, the GA is expected to go on sometime on Q3 2024. And that's when we'll be concluding our integration requirements for the service provider. So the vendors have already started, and the service providers will then be open for GA in Q3 2024. And then the members have the right, both vendors and service providers, to not publish certifications on our registry, and that's their choice. There are special legal clauses that we put in the contracts. So, but it gives them a right. If they score poor, they can come back and retest and try to get a higher score. So that basically members can show that they've got good scoring and rating. Again, our goal is to drive the whole ecosystem to get to top scoring, and really not to do anything more than to make our certification a gold standard to deliver high quality application assurance and cybersecurity defense. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day and a great sessions coming up here for our virtual meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes just building up on what Nan was talking about, the collaboration platform. Just elaborating on what Nan was saying with the collaboration platform. We want to see things in a more holistic way. There's a huge amount of activity at MEF, huge amount of deliverables. And what we've done is we've categorized the different activities so that we can bring it together in a way that it makes it much more effective for the members of the MEF to collaborate in MEF, but also to extend the work of MEF through the ecosystem. So on the left-hand side, we see engagement, and we're all very familiar with the different events that we're involved with. the member meetings, the committee work, and within the committee work, the work projects, incubation groups, and so on, the member tools, things like the wiki and other tools. So that's something that's very well established, and there's always work to do to improve that, and we're always looking at how best to do that. The next area of the collaboration platform, of course, is the standards themselves, and we have a wide range of work going on in the committees. It's been going on over the years for business requirements and technical work for product services, now entering cybersecurity and business and operational automation is well established with the LSO work. So many of you will be familiar with that. We want to make it easier to find all those materials and to engage in that work and to participate in that work. But we're making good progress on that. On the automation side, you're familiar with all the API releases. We started with the Aretha a few years ago, and we came out with Grace recently. We have the LSO Marketplace, a website that makes it much easier to access all the API materials and all the related standards. We're working on making that more effective and better known. We're also introducing smart contract services, and I'll be talking about the first example of that in more detail. But the LSO APIs that we've been publishing over the years have been focused on providing information in an automated way back and forth between the buyers and sellers primarily on the east-west side. What we've been doing also is working on how to use blockchain and how to use smart contracts as a single source of truth between the buyer and the seller. And I think we're in a very good position, a leading position in the industry in actually looking at how to create reference designs, if you like, baseline standards for smart contracts and the best operating environments for those smart contracts based on public blockchain. We put out a blog not so long ago about the comparison between blockchain consortia and digital cooperatives. I recommend you go read that, because that's really the leading edge of the work that we're doing, and will explain a lot about the importance of the smart contract work. And obviously, there's a lot of community support that goes on around that. We have the community developer manager, Michal, who's also LSO committee co-chair. So we're working all the time to make it easier for companies to be onboarded into MEF, into the LSO ecosystem. The next part of the MEF collaboration platform, proof of concept aspect. Many of you are familiar with the proof of concepts that we did over the years leading up to before COVID. Since COVID, we've moved into a new approach, which is what we call the NAS Accelerator Program. And the idea here is that we won't do proof of concepts for a particular event where everybody's focusing on getting something demonstrated at some face-to-face event. Rather, focus on enabling collaboration between companies over an extended period of time so that they can evolve the work and establish it in the industry. So I'll be talking about some examples of the NAS accelerators that we have, and we're not only making them available over time, we're not only facilitating them over time, but we're also making it possible to demonstrate them at particular events. So that's sort of an adjunct to the underlying concept of the NAS Accelerator Program, which is constant evolution of collaboration. And we saw that in the GNE 2023 with the first NAS Accelerator Live. So I'll talk about some of those examples in a bit more detail shortly. The certification program I think Pascal covered that in enough detail on the cybersecurity side. Obviously, great traction that Nan talked about with the, Kevin talked about with the MEF 3.0 certification. We're doing more work on the LSO API certification and how to adapt the needs of the market, the certification program to the needs of the market on the LSO API certification. So stay tuned for that, especially in the test and certification committee. And then finally, we've got all the education work. And I think this is really a very, very, very key point in the collaboration platform that we're getting better at. We talked about the PR and AR, the work that Stan's doing, the deliverables there, things like the State of the Industry report and the NAS blueprint. The GNE, of course, is a huge contributor to that. But we have a lot more work to do. There's so much valuable material assets in the MEF environment, in the MEF ecosystem. We're working hard to make it easier to access them and to make sure that the whole industry is aware of them. So let's go and look at the examples I wanted to talk about. If you go to the next slide, Kevin, thank you. So I'll go through these very, very quickly, just so that you have a taste of or a sense of the different activities that are running. If you want to be involved in any of these accelerators, or you want to talk about creating your own accelerator, drop me a line. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. So the first one, short course, it's a major problem in the industry, address validation. Over the last 3 months, we think we've made a bit of a breakthrough because we've been working on this for a couple of years, if not more. And we're working on a collaboration with ConnectBase, our member, that has what they call the location truth solution. And we're working to see how we can take that and put that into a broader environment based on location identity and identifiers. So more about that to follow. Q1 Toucan is an extension, if you like, of the cybersecurity certification work that we're doing. Another MEF member, Cloud Cover, are taking a leading position in making it much easier for enterprises to get cybersecurity insurance and for service providers in MEF and other places to offer cybersecurity insurance. Very early stages, but very important work there in Q1 Toucan. Flat Hammer around multi-cloud, that was presented at GNE Accelerator Live. A lot of good recorded material about that. I urge you to take a look at that. Hot Mongoose, another one, extending the work of the Digital Services Committee, where they've been standardizing the schema or the definition for IaaS and edge compute as a service, taking that and making it easier to trade or transact edge compute as a product. Liquid Glass, we're now restarting that. There's some very strong interest now in using blockchain for rated ordering, so stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. Loud Frog. I'm getting more and more emails from companies that have implemented LSO APIs or are planning to, saying, how do we find those partners that we're directly interoperable with? So we've actually prototyped a platform for automated identification, or you could think of it as matchmaking between companies that have implemented, for example, LSO quote on the sell side in the Dolly release, being able to find all the partners that are on the potential partners on the buy side that have implemented LSO quote with the appropriate releases that are immediately interoperable. So we're very, very keen to get data into that platform. So if you could drop me a line, if you want more information or you're willing to contribute information on what you've implemented, and we'll put that in as part of Loud Frog. Middle Earth, new initiative driven by Salesforce and Idea Helix around how to make it scalable for companies to to partner, to be onboarded as partners. We're seeing more and more buyers saying, well, we've got lots and lots of partners that need to be automated. We need to make it easier for them to implement the LSO APIs and to be qualified and onboarded. So that's Middle-earth. Stone Panther presented at GNE, very strong work done around billing and settlement based on blockchain and qualified invoices. I urge you to see the material on that as well. And finally, Wolftown, actually the most established. It's mentioned last because it's in alphabetical order, but Wolftown is the most established of the NAS accelerators, an excellent example of how a group of members, in this case, Sparkle, Orchestra, Colt, came together and prototype the industry's first smart contract for SLA reporting, and that's turned into a service that I'm going to talk about on the next slide. So, as I've mentioned, we've got a lead position in using smart contracts and blockchain for use cases in the LSO lifecycle. The first one that we talked about, I think it was back in Denver, where it was brought up for the first time in CBC, was the idea of SLAs and automated reporting of SLAs. So we've actually collaborated with Sage Management, one of our members, and other companies to create the first of a planned suite of subscription services. This particular one, the beta is planned for this quarter, and we already have a funnel of interested service providers, both on the buy and sell side. But the idea is that that companies will be able to basically feed their trouble ticket, scheduled maintenance, force majeure type of instance into a smart contract, which is mutually trusted, and to mutually endorse the data in real time, eliminating, if not all, the vast majority of disputes that arise from SLAs and SLA credits built into master service agreements. So this is part of a larger story of all the work that we're doing around trouble ticketing and SLAs in general. We've already published APIs, the business requirements and the APIs for trouble ticket appointment work order in 113 and 124. Recent interest in the Enterprise Leadership Council, led by Sunil. They've come with their request for actually sort of an SLA, not an SLA reporting service, but an instant reporting service. And Manfred's taken that work that was done in 113 and 124 and mapped that to their requirements. So stay tuned for that very interesting initiative there. And we've got the NAS accelerator that I talked about with Wolftown. And one last thing, there's work going on defining the SLA terms and definitions in the incubation group in Commercial and Business Committee. Last thing I'll just spend the last minute on, scaling onboarding of LSO partners. I mentioned that before. We put a program around that called the LSO Springboard Program, rethinking how we bring together the buyers, the sellers, the use of the MEF OIT service, rethinking the LSO API certification and where MEF contributes, and bringing that all in together in order to create a much more scalable solution that can take advantage of all the LSO API work that's been done, and understanding the market and its segmentation accordingly. So that's just a taster of all the work that's going on, or some of the work that's going on around the collaborative platform. If any of that interests you specifically, drop me a line. I'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you. And I think it really underlines, the fact that, we really do have this broad platform for collaboration where members can come in and participate in a lot of different ways. And we'll see more of that when we get into marketing and so on, and the committees, of course. Now, so with that, we'd like to shift. We're going to be about 10 minutes late, I think, but we'll try to make up a little bit of time, but we'll probably finish about 12:55 versus 12:45, just for time check for those of you who type. So I'm going to ask the chairs just to jump in one at a time here, and we're going to start with Jeff Jason, who's going to give us a quick update on what's happening with the Digital Service Committee. Jason?
Hey, thanks, Kevin.
There you are. Okay.
Okay, I'll try to make up a bit of time here. So what does Digital Service Committee do? In a nutshell, we develop standards for the kinds of business services that companies like mine sell to enterprise and wholesale customers. And we do that by establishing a common language and set of expectations for all of the parties involved. I tend to group the work, in my mind at least, into two streams. The first one being cybersecurity and overlay services, and that's really the growth area where there's lots of net new activity happening. The other area being underlay services, which is our more historical bread and butter. That work is in more of what I would call a maintenance mode. We're doing surgical enhancements to it, but no massive investments. Our outputs typically become inputs to the other committees. So LSO will take our standards and develop info models, data models, APIs, SDKs. Certification committee will develop certification programs for those services. But things are starting to go full circle now. And so LSO is starting to drive some of those surgical enhancements I mentioned to the underlay services. And TCC is starting to drive some of the cybersecurity work. For fiscal year 2024, our focus really will be on augmenting the cybersecurity standards. We have security functions for IP services, which is a set of atomic functions that can be applied to any IP service. That work's almost done. We have our SASE and Zero Trust revision projects, which are well underway. And at this meeting, we hope to approve a new project to develop a framework for a secure service edge. Also at this meeting, we hope to pass 3-letter ballots, which is the final ballot for 3 new standards. First one being SD-WAN, performance monitoring and service readiness testing. Second one being cross-connection service attributes. That one is an example of a gap that was identified by LSO. And the third one being subscriber network slice service attributes. We've got a revision to that one, which should be going to letter ballot this meeting as well. That's it for DSE.
All right, Jason, thank you. Karthik, no stranger to MEF, former DSC, now with the former LSO, I'm sorry, now chairing one of the chairs for the CBC.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. So the Commercial and Business Committee, the focus of this committee is providing a platform and a forum for folks from the product and business teams of the MEF membership, right? The feedback we had gotten past was the other committees were either too technical or they were sort of discussing stuff that was not in the domain expertise of these folks from these teams of members. So to that end, like this committee does operate under the MEF standards development process. We just adopted our rules and procedures in the last quarter meeting. And we are now working towards publishing MEF standards and white papers. So this includes work that's mainly focused on looking at the commercial and business aspects of buying and selling of products and services through the LSO product payloads or smart contracts, DAOs, and so on. Right. So it's all of the work that's been done in DSC as well as LSO committee, but looking at it from a commercial angle. We have one active project at this point. It's the Internet Access Product Attributes and Use Cases. It's MEF 164. That's going to be a MEF standard. And a few active incubation groups. I'll call out 3 of them here. One of them is the SLA reporting business requirements and use cases. This incubation group is actually developed a project proposal and it's going to be looking for approval in this quarterly meeting. There's another project, another IG called SLA Terms and Definitions. They don't have a project proposal at this meeting, but they're working towards one to be presented at the next meeting. And the third IG I would like to call out is a NAS product experience. The focus of this IG is one is to provide feedback to the NAS blueprint, as well as develop a white paper on the product experience, NAS product experience. So all of these are member driven. I really invite you to go to the CBC homepage and find the call, meeting schedule, and Zoom links. Also under CBC, like Daniel covered it in more depth, are the MEF Accelerator, NAS Accelerator programs. I'll just call out 4 of them here. I mean, Daniel went through all of them in good detail, so it makes it easier. So the Wolftown, which is related to SLA automation, Hot Mongoose on edge compute, Flat Hamper on cloud network automation, and Stone Panther and synchronized inventory. So these accelerators did demo it at JNE, and they're continuing the work. They have regular weekly calls. Again, if you go to the CBC homepage and navigate down, you will be able to find all the details that will let you participate in these projects and accelerators. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Karthik. And Mihal will be discussing the LSO committee. No, sorry, it's Patrick today. Patrick, sorry.
Hi, Kevin. No problem. Hello. So in the LSO committee, we are focusing on writing the business requirements and the developer guides for the APIs in Sonata, Cantata, Legato. For the business level, we are this year going to focus on introducing the new address model we have developed in MEF 150, where we basically have now one identifier that connects all the different ways that an address can be represented. And we are also going to focus on the product inventory business requirements use cases, which we will amend to get them in line with the current product ordering MEF 57.2. At the service level, we are going to work on the new APIs for the threshold crossing alerts, the fault management, and the service function testing. We are also going to revise the service ordering and service inventory business requirements and use cases. The current ones that are available are based on one product, and now we are going to make them payload independent. And we are going to do new payloads for the performance management APIs. And in the end, on the planning, we have for this year two deliverables for the SDKs. The deliverable Haley, that's planned for June of this year, where the SDK is basically focused on the delivery of MEF 110, which is product offering availability and pricing discovery, the delivery of the product catalog, and the product catalog developers guide. All of these will be hopefully in letter ballot or planned to be in letter ballot by then. And then we have the MEF 79.1 for the product offer qualification, and the MEF 150 for the address and site management, and the MEF 110 for the product offering availability and pricing discovery and its API. That will be in draft standard by the June SDK. And then in December, we are going to deliver the Irene SDK, where we hope to have the address management and product offering qualification and product availability and pricing discovery in letter ballot, and have a first CFC ready for the introduction of the updated addresses across the different other APIs. That's it for the LSO committee this year.
Great, thank you, Patrick. And just going to wrap up with the test and certification committee, and Devesh Gupta will provide the overview. Over to you, Devesh.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Hey, Kevin. All right, so quick update on the TCC committee. TCC committee obviously works hand in hand with the Digital Services LSO and CBC, other three committees, and brings into market the certification for three verticals. One is for the technology providers, historically the Carrier Ethernet and also the SD-WAN, and then service provider certification and also ProCerts, professional certification for individuals. And so the area of focus for this year for us, there's been a lot of work going on in the bringing new SASE certifications to market. I think you heard Pascal earlier that the plan is that the GA would be somewhere in Q3 this year. So behind the scenes, there's been a lot of work being done under the committee and also undergoing, looking forward in 2024, contracting with the service providers and then with the vendors and also the service providers. Beta testing is happening with cyber ratings, marketing material, and all that is being worked on behind the scenes. So that's a major area of focus for us at TCC. Also, there is test and certification documentation being prepared for each of these services that comprise of SASE. So SD-WAN, SSE, Zero Trust, and also end-to-end SASE. That's the first body of work. Then there is pivot we're gonna do on the LSO API certification program front to bring in more business and operational APIs under the fold. So there will be more discussions during this virtual meet as well in how to shaping the LSO API certifications to cater to a larger market, maybe in tie-up with the Springboard program that Daniel talked about. So there are going to be some changes there to the existing certs there. Also, we're looking to enhance the OIT platform, onboarding and interop for all kind of new releases of applications that are coming up. So for APIs for those, and then there is also work being done under develop the Ethernet over broadband certification. So the agenda for this meeting, we've had, I think, 3 editing sessions, 2 of them yesterday and 1 this morning, mainly to cover the SD-WAN, SSE, and ZT documents, and also the SASE documents. So these are various phases of CFC, and we have a session where we would be discussing this. So if you join our committee meetings on Wednesday, you would be having a chance to review what we have done so far in this. Obviously, there is a discussion on, there are 4 sessions that we would have. One is for the LSO API test and certification. The other one for the SASE certification program update. I think the target is for this quarter to at least have 3 of the vendors certified under this program in beta certification, and then the service provider certs would be taken up subsequently. So there is discussion on that, and there is there's going to be an update on all these 3 or 4 documents that we have for SASE test case requirements. Lastly, I think there is a session we'll have on Ethernet on broadband test requirements. We're actually going to be having a project proposal for this to create a new project. So that is in the nutshell to TCC.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Devesh. Just a comment, one item that's has not officially been kind of put on the agenda for the committee, and it's not yet recognized as a focus area, but we'll be talking about is, how do we ultimately create a network as a service certification? What would be the strategy around that? Compiling existing certifications, new certifications. So I think that's, that will emerge as a topic as the year progresses here. I will say that the gentlemen are very modest in terms of, a little readout with a few bullets here, but the underlying work in the committees, the volume of work in LSO committee far exceeds what you're seeing on the slide. And I will also say that the closing plenary is an ideal, the focus of the closing plenary is more of a readout on what's happened within the committees. So there's a lot more detail. If you can't make it live, download it later. If you really want to get a more granular look at the work going on and where it sits on the progress side of things in the roadmap. But thank you, gentlemen, as always. Stan, our principal analyst, is going to provide an automation market update and a snapshot of our major activities in this space for the year.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, so on the next slide, what I wanted to do is just kind of give everybody. Oh, Kevin, are you advancing?
Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah. So what I wanted to do is give everybody an update on where we are with the adoption picture. So we're tracking at least 155 service providers in our adoption lifecycle now. That's all the way from interest through to production. And we have at least 35 companies that are in production, either as buyers or sellers or both. And we're forecasted to reach at least 68, possibly 70 or more by the end of this year, and around 100 by the end of 2025. And you can see that we've got various adoption accelerators kind of listed out here on the lower right. We've got a large number of LSO solution providers which are helping the service providers implement the APIs. We also have additional payloads beyond Ethernet that'll be supported with the APIs. And one of the things that we've been doing, we just came out of PTC. We had a lot of conversations there with different operators from around the world. And one of the highlights there, I thought, from the event was the fact that we've got internet access. We'll have our first implementation of internet access coming up within the next couple of months, based on what I heard there. Buyer and seller working together to implement internet access, and of course, Pascal highlighted the importance of that as a big area of growth going forward. The other thing I think coming out of PTC is that we have more companies looking at implementing the APIs on both the buy and sell side. We've had more discussion about the growth of ecosystems. So we talk about this overall global ecosystem, but within that, we have various ecosystems in different regions and different countries where you've got buyers and sellers needing to work together and find out solutions to bring on, the downstream partners. And that's an exciting area of development. We also had discussions at PTC around the cross connect opportunity for automated cross connects, and so we've got work going on around that. So those are some important highlights, I think. If you want to move on to the next slide, this is what the picture looks like right now in terms of the companies that are in the various stages of the adoption lifecycle. As I mentioned, we've got 35 in production. We've got 74 plus that are committed or in production today. A large number that are in the evaluation or business case stage, and then we've got a very significant number that are in the interest stage. So we track companies as soon as they express an interest in the APIs, either through downloads of the State of the Industry report or just in conversations with us or with other companies that are involved in implementing the APIs. So in the next slide, this gives you kind of the current look in terms of the service providers around the world that are in all stages of the adoption lifecycle based on different geographic regions and also by tier. So you can see we have a nice mix of activity throughout the world. I would say, in the last few months, we started to see the Middle East to Africa market pick up in terms of activity. And, I think you'll see that US and Canada number grow as we have more activity going on in the US between some of the larger players looking for cell partners here. And then on the right side, we got a really good representation across the tiers, and very excited to see the significant number of companies that are tier 3s and 4s that are involved in the life cycle. And the next slide here, this is our updated view as to companies that have given us permission to share their logos, showing that they're in production or committed to production. We've added quite a few logos over the last couple of months. You'll see some familiar names there, very large players, but we also have other companies that are MEF members that are maybe not the big names, but we've got a growing number of companies that are tier 3 type players that are moving into production or very close to production or committed. And if you are on that path and your logo is not shown here, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat with you. One of the things that we've been doing in tracking the adoption, we've always been asking, companies, are you buying? Are you selling? What functions are you looking to implement? What release are you on? And what partners are you working with? And that's the type of information that we want to be able to share publicly. So the more input we have from our members, the more approval we get, the more we can do along the lines of that automation presentation that Daniel sort of touched on earlier. So really appreciate everybody that's provided input, and it's been really helpful for us to create things like the State of the Industry report. We're now approaching about 500 downloads for that report. That includes professionals from 120 plus service providers and data center players around the world. So that again feeds back into our adoption lifecycle. When we know who's engaging with us, we can reach out and we can help companies accelerate their path towards implementation. And along those lines, one of the things that I wanted to highlight is, if you haven't seen the report, we do go into the business case for implementing the APIs. There's a very extensive discussion there. We cover the top benefits, like accelerating service delivery, 25% reduction in order cycle times, accelerating time to revenue, and so forth. So all of this information is elaborated on in the report. And last but not least, on the LSO front, I did want to touch on the LSO solution providers in the next slide. We have put together this matrix to help companies as they look for who can they work with to help implement the APIs, and what are the different types of solutions that are available. You've got direct implementations. You've got companies that want to work with broker type of partners that will help companies implement or transact with the APIs with players that are not actually implementing the APIs yet, using adapters and so forth. So check out the report. The matrix is there. You can see who you can work with to help you move down that path. On the next slide, I did want to touch on our research program plans. Karthik mentioned the NAS Experience White Paper. I'll be contributing to that. We'll be updating the NAS blueprint. This is pretty much a live document. I'll continue to work with Pascal and the members on updating that. And then the goal here is, as we come out of G&E, we will have lots of content at the end of the year. We'll be producing a State of the Industry report on the NAS market in 2025. But before we get there, we got some other work going on. I'll be working with Pascal and the team on an SASE and SD-WAN managed services report, where we're going to be looking at collaborating with some industry analysts that cover this market pretty extensively. And the goal there is to help drive certification and overall adoption of MEF standards. And then, of course, we want to have an update for the State of the Industry report. That's a sponsored report. We had a lot of great support for that last year from sponsors. We want to be able to improve the ability to demonstrate the ROI, especially to help accelerate adoption. So that's all I had, Kevin.
Well, it's quite a bit, Stan. Great readout. Thank you. And, coming back to your matrix of providers, I've talked to service providers that are using this as a basis to direct RFPs to vendors based on their support for LSO, as stated in your report. And of course, that's one of the drivers to keep that data fresh and current, right? So it's useful for the community here. Hit that button here, introducing Diana Richards, our new MEF Senior Director of Marketing, about 4.5 months now. I would say that she's going to give you just a snapshot of what's in store for marketing this year. We're still kind of at early stages of planning because there's a lot to consider if you look at the work that we just talked about. But I'm going to let Diana talk about the high-level view of marketing this year, followed by a little bit more specifics on ARPR by Melissa, and then on the event side by Lori. Over to you, Diana.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here with all of you, and I look to meet everyone in person at our next meeting in April. So just listening to the presentations this morning, the takeaway from a marketing perspective is to always be communicating with our staff, our leadership, our members, and taking all that input in terms of, what does that mean in terms of our storytelling in the market. So we've narrowed that down to 3 key objectives this year that we're going to be building messaging around content, linking it to our events that Lori manages, and working with Melissa on our industry analyst and media participation. So it all kind of hangs together in a really good way. That's the goal. So NAS is front and center, as you've heard from Nan and Pascal, and as well as SASE and automation. So with those 3 key areas, what we're really looking to do is, how do we pivot and reposition MEF from the great standards body work that has been historically in our DNA and bring that along to this new, business industry collaboration platform within this community? So no easy task, but that's a primary goal. So Kevin is hurrying me along, so I will
just keep things moving here, yeah.
So to the left of the screen are really all of the key inputs for what we develop to feed the marketing channels over on the right side. So good alignment with understanding our growth strategy. What are we marketing? Who are we marketing it to? Our technology roadmap. Importantly, working with our members on co-marketing activities. And the takeaway I would have from this slide is, just like you hear, read the room. We need to read the industry, and we need to be clear and concise and authentic in how we represent MEF and what we're driving, and also what our members are doing to help us do that and advance in the industry. So that would be my takeaway there, Kevin, from this slide. I think there's a couple more after this. So yeah, turning to you guys out there, we need content, we need input, and that can take the form of our Executives at the Edge podcast. And what's really compelling about that is it's very conversational with Pascal. So it's kind of a riff on whatever topic that you would like to amplify in the market, and we wrap social media around that. Of course, use cases are the best storytelling ever, along with customer testimonials. Melissa and her staff, we want you to write with us, right? And all those areas. So yes, please reach out to editor@mef.net. And I certainly welcome any feedback to myself, which is, of course, Diana@mef.net. I think there's a couple slides. Yeah, so we touched on Executives at the Edge. We've had a great venue in the last couple of years. Melissa's been driving our engagement with our partners, and marketing then promotes that on social media. So great forum for storytelling in a nice kind of conversational way. And we're on all major platforms. So yeah, over to Melissa. And follow us on our social media channels, all the usual suspects. And look to see us amplifying more on social media this year as well.
I think we're just shy of 10,000 followers now, right?
Yeah, we are. So it's growing, and we love to see that. So
maybe everybody on the call here, if you're not following us, you can jump in and do this. Maybe we'll get over 10,000 today. Well, actually, no, we're 500 short. So I thought we were a little bit closer, about 550 short. Anyway, thank you, Diana.
Sure.
Lots of work to be done. And just going to ask Melissa to jump in. And we had a really good year with AR and PR. breaking into, publications that, were tough nuts for us to crack. And we're going to build on that progress this year.
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everyone. As Kevin mentioned, 23 was a great year for MEF in the news. Our metrics were all up significantly over the last year and actually over the last few years. We expanded, as Kevin mentioned, into target security publications, which was a new area for MEF, and saw some really great traction there, started to develop some good relationships. This year, we're going to continue to nurture those and strengthen, our impact in the enterprise publications as we look to, build awareness for MEF in this important market. Next slide. So really, as you've heard from pretty much everyone today, our focus for the year from a press and analyst relations perspective is really positioning MEF as a NAS leader, the go-to authority or a go-to authority in SASE, and of course, continuing to build momentum in the automated ecosystem. And, how do we do this? We do it with really strong messaging, relevant news, of course, lots of educational content, as Diana mentioned, articles, podcasts, blogs, frequent conversations with our key reporters and analysts, and of course, engagement from our members, which we love to have, several ways that you can get involved. The podcast, the blog, and from my perspective, contributed articles in our industry publications. I'm always thrilled to work with members on developing these and getting them placed. So if you're interested in that, please do reach out to me. Next slide. Aside from the PR and analyst activities, I also sort of head up the Excellence Awards, which we reintroduced last year. And, we're thrilled to celebrate member achievements and contributions to the industry. As we look to build the program for 24, we'll focus on NAS and look to expand the awards, that we're offering to reach a broader set of our members. We'll be forming a team next month to start to flesh this out, and we really would love to include membership in developing the program. So if this is something you'd like to get involved in, please definitely reach out to myself or Stan. I've included a little timeline here, a short timeline. We've just started really working on this. But any questions, please reach out to me. We'll have more to share in the coming months. So please watch this space.
Yeah, definitely. For the awards last year that we delivered at G&E, those awards were very different from the pre-COVID awards. We were operating under a little bit of a compressed time frame. So I think we have a little bit more time to get it right, to really take it in the right direction this year as we march towards network as a service, but not just around NAS, but recognizing, excellence in the work areas, all the underlying work areas that we were involved in. But yeah, thanks for leading that. So someone who is no stranger to everybody that's been around here for a long time, Lori, you're going to give us a snapshot of G&E and our events participation in general.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited that G&E returns to Dallas at the same venue in October. You've heard a lot about, I think everybody pretty much throughout the day has mentioned G&E today, so it's pretty significant for us. But the theme is we're trying to build on the NAS experience, and we're excited. We'll be launching the new website on the 12th of February, and we'll have some new topics, and Stan is working in the background to start building the program, to do some outreach to speakers, and that will start coming together in the next couple of weeks. Things like, I'll just mention this quickly, it's down here in the bullets, but things like the innovation stations, which were super popular last year, we'll bring those back. And Tom and Daniel are running the Accelerator Live program. So that's a new program that they'll be launching as well. Next slide. Okay, slow build. So these are some of the goals. I won't go through these. We've kind of talked on some of them. Melissa just mentioned expanding on the media and analysts. But the focus for Stan will be to build the program on progress in the market over the last year from October until October of this year. And then we just took lots of the participant experience feedback, and we're trying to build on that to make it bigger and better and grow the audience and the attendance overall. Next slide.
Pricing.
Yeah, so the important thing. So we have lots of companies that have committed, which is a good and nice little base of companies. So I urge you to talk to your marketing folks and get approval before the February 15th deadline, which is approaching pretty quickly. Okay, next slide.
Someone, if anybody's interested, they just contact you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And this is basically some of the events, the larger industry events that we're doing in the next 2 quarters. PTC was mentioned today. We had a really good event last week. We hosted an executive briefing and a reception and a dinner that went really well. Excuse me. These are some of the bigger ones that, our focus pretty much at events is obviously to, besides having speaking slots to promote MEF, it's about meeting with our members and potential members. So we try to have the biz dev side in that as well. And I think that's it. Yep.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Just coming back to the G&E, we got, as she mentioned, we had a lot of great percentage of respondents on the survey and a lot of one-to-one. So the good news is we're just really going to build on it. We're going to improve the content. We do some just an all-around, tuning and tweaking here and there, more media and analysts and so on. So we're really excited because we've got a little bit more time than we had last year. And for those of you that weren't there, please try to get this into your travel plan. So, I don't have any slides for these final little remarks here. We're a little over time anyway. I appreciate you guys hanging in. I will say a thank you to everybody that helped, put together this readout today. I think I thought it was a good readout. It's the first time I actually really looked at it all end to end from stepping back a little bit. But hopefully the members will see that we're working hard on your behalf as a leadership team to lay out our plans and to the strategy and the plans and execute on them. But these are just plans that in some cases other than maybe the committee side of things are driven by the staff but they're drafts, they're plans, and we want your input. So some of you are very much engaged, others are not so much, but any comments you have, shoot an email to any of us. Shoot it to me, kevin@mef.net. If you got any suggestions on anything in the content here at all, we'll get directed to the right place. So with that, thanks for your attention, and thank you for those that are participating in the committee sessions this week. And a reminder that we've got the closing plenary that's on the wiki. There is a question. Someone has got, oh no, it's a little clapping going on. All right. I thought it was a hand going up. Thanks very much and take care.